Hi, everybody. My name is Alicia, she, they pronouns. I am joining you here from Salal. I'm the annual giving officer. I'm here with some really fantastic folks today, and I'm excited to get into this conversation about the role of joy in healing. Before we begin, of course, I would love to acknowledge the land that I'm on. I am very, very grateful to be joining you from the lands of the Coquitlam First Nations. These people have stewarded this land for time immemorial, and truly such beautiful lands, and I'm so grateful to be here and to contribute my part in getting land back. Um, I would love to pass it off to the folks in this room here to do a quick introduction of yourself, your pronouns, and then we'll get into the meat of the conversation. I don't want to volunteer anybody, but does somebody want to go first?
I could go first.
Awesome.
Um,
On. Over to you.
yeah. As Bonaventure Fabian, I'd like to acknowledge where I am. I'm sitting here in the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation area. I'm two-spirited. I'm Métis, Red River Métis from Treaty One territory. My last name's my father was Fabian. He's the Slovenian man in my life, had been, and my mother is the Gauchers, Parisians, Vermets. That's on my mother's side, all Red River Métis. Yeah, I'm very honored to be here today and to share my experience of joy from this time of my older lifespan that I'm at, the older years I'm into right now. So it's really nice to have this a bit place and space to share things about joy in my current, all my life, throughout my life. But there we go. All my
Thank you,
relation.
Juan. We're so excited to have you. Thank you.
Oh, and
Hi.
my pronouns
Oh,
are he and they. There we go.
Awesome. Thanks.
I'm happy to go next. My
Sure.
name is Rebecca Brass. I am a counselor at Salal, and I am joining you from the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I am a member of Key First Nation. I am Cree and Ojibwe from my mother's side, and my dad's side is from Panama. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here today and taking part in this conversation.
Can go
And
next.
my pronouns are she, her, sorry.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
My name is Benny. I use he, they pronouns. I live on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I am a trans Filipinx event producer and DJ, and I'm really excited to join you all today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here, Benny. And last but
I'm
not least, Alyssa.
Alyssa, she, her pronouns, and what was the rest?
Just
Uh,
like a quick summary of who you are.
okay. I have two small businesses that I run and a dog that I love, and yeah.
And you crossed the trail for us and raised $10,000,
Right.
which is no small
I
feat.
raised $11,000 for sexual assault survivors and hiked over, I guess, total over 1,200 miles. And yeah.
And how long did that take again, Alyssa?
Um, of actual hiking time, the first 1,000 miles took me about 2.5, 3 months, but I was out there for about 5.5 months because the other months were me being sick or injured or heli evac'd out of the mountains, you name it.
Yeah, pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Alyssa's a badass.
I would love to know more. I'd love to hear more.
I can talk about more in today, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully today's panel will be discussing that a little bit more because
Mm,
Alyssa's story is fascinating. Let me
wow.
say.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So to get into this conversation, I feel like I would love to kind of set like a foundation for understanding what joy is, how it plays a role in our lives, how it shows up in the work, what have you. So the question I'm going to ask is, what role did joy play in your healing? But feel free to answer in a way that feels the best.
Hmm. Well,
I,
something that comes to mind for me. Sorry, were you going to say something?
oh, I was just going to say, I can volunteer something to get the ball rolling.
Um, So the question is, what role did joy play in your healing? And so something that comes up for me is just within the last few years, as I've been, healing is a continuous journey. It's a continuous path. And something that I have recently reaccessed within myself is my craftiness. And so I've been beading and making, I did not make these, but I'm making beaded earrings and learning how to decolonize myself through arts and crafts. And so that's a role that joy played in my own healing, was reconnecting with myself, and that could be also through foods too, is another big way of finding joy within my own healing process.
Yes, I feel that. I feel like food is a big thing for me as well. Like cooking for myself feels like such a like a tender care task. So it brings me a lot of joy as well.
Yeah.
It's great.
And dealing with grief, something in my life is I've lost my mother and over 10 years ago. But the way that I find reconnecting with her and others that you may have lost through food is just taking recipes that she may have given me one time, and then sharing that with my family and knowing that this is something that she, nourished our bodies with once upon a time.
I feel exactly the same way. I come from like a mixed race heritage as well, but my grandma on my maternal side was like primary caretaker for me for a good chunk of my life. And she was truly the best cook. And I forever will be trying to emulate what she did to her food. I don't understand because she used like regular ingredients and like sometimes wouldn't even use salt.
It's love.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's her
Oh,
love.
it's incredible.
That makes me think about what you're saying there. You think about your mom when you're cooking there. It makes me think about when we make our spirit dishes for ceremony.
Yes.
And now the joy, it's so funny because it just happens out of the blue. Like one day I'm in the kitchen here doing something and I thought about my ex's mother and I was really close to her. Joey, I miss her. And then one day I'm having cookies or some tea. I thought, Joey, I'll make some tea for you. So I'm just talking out. She just pops into my brain. And so I'm pouring a little tea and some cookies and I'll put a spirit dish out. Same thing with
Yes.
my grandma. All of a sudden I'm having blueberries. I went, oh, they pop in my brain. And then I put a little dish out blueberries out. And that brings me joy. So that's like the healing of with the grief
Mm-hmm.
or friends or people that have passed on. So no wonder that food is connected to them and happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hear that completely. I have an altar set up on me as well. And sometimes I'll put like, traditional Tibetan foods on little spoons in front of their pictures. I love that.
I agree. I agree with all of you. Joy is such a like sensual catharsis, and so like it makes so much sense for me to hear that there's so many memories linked to taste or smell or sight or you know um, that's so cool. I as I was explaining during the icebreaker before the recording, I experienced I guess in a chapter of my life joy when I was dancing and when I was in tune with my body in um an erotic way. And so and eroticism in the way that Audre Lorde, coined eroticism. And so I um like being able to reading that work by her and then being able to name this spiritual feeling is it's empowering. And I I I use it then to describe like different ways of how I source joy now in this chapter of my life. Like I was saying earlier, I I love gaming and I love to explore different avatars of myself and understand different dimensions of who I am. And also something that brings me joy is to get to know, these other parts of my friends and to see these parts of themselves be able to come out that don't necessarily get to be strengthened or empowered in the real world. And so I I'm so yeah, that's such a sacred, I think, practice right now is just being able to um play.
Yes, I love that. I love that. That's very exciting. Using these like other modalities to explore different parts of yourself is uh, very exciting.
Thank
So
you.
like innovative. Yeah.
Innovative is a perfect word. That's so yeah. It's I mean these are practices that people have done forever, you know, and so I'm so grateful to be able to and radically so, right? People have like it like not have people sometimes people don't have access to certain things or have certain barriers, and you know like something I've learned in coming into the gaming community and like the streaming community, um there is such like a like that's such a fruitful space for people to be able to connect with each other, because you know some people have mobility barriers, and so like they can't leave their house, but they have an entire community of friends online, right? So that's survival. And I am so, you know, I'm so I'm so lucky to have found like a really cool like a start to a really cool queer and trans community online. But yeah. And I play a lot of games with a close friend of mine, which is really fun. So it's just yeah, it's wonderful learning, you know, where I can access that is awesome.
Yeah, speaking of access, in the world of gaming, I was mentioning before in the icebreaker how I've been spending a lot of time at the local library,
Yeah.
and that's been like bringing me joy. And when I was there yesterday, I discovered this group of kids who like had just gotten out of school. They were playing, I think, like Minecraft or COD. I don't know games, but they were playing something, and it was like on with online friends, but also their friends from school, and it was just so cute, like knowing that they got to spend time at the library so that they could like sit down and play games with and like be connected to this whole group of people. So that's really, really awesome. Support your local libraries.
Yeah.
Totally. Mhm.
All right, I'll pass it over to Alyssa.
Um, Sorry, I'm blanking, guys.
Oh, no worries.
So I guess it depends on what part of my healing you'd be talking about. Because I'm on a coming up to year 5 now. So you know, before I went on the trail, I found my joy in like movies or playing Animal Crossing, because the pandemic and everything kind of didn't let a lot of stuff happen. The one friend that was in my bubble, we would always do like puzzles and games and all that, because yeah, we just kind of like to hang out together and just do like very simple things, make dinner together and all that. So that was like a big role in the beginning part of my healing. Yeah, I don't really, yeah, I would say that's about it. And then the hiking became the really big next thing for me. Um, and without that hike, I think I would be a lot more, I wouldn't say like behind where I am now, but like definitely like my mental state and my thought process on everything would probably be like closer, not where it is now, basically. So that's a big thing. And then now it's the enjoying both of my businesses, and when one is bringing me more joy than the other, spending more time on that one versus the other, and kind of going like that, and um, spending time with my dog, and yeah.
Feel free to do a quick shameless plug of your two businesses as well.
I'm a personal trainer, and then I crochet as well. So I make crocheted plushies. And my Instagram's Naughty Mouse Crochet on spelled like an actual like knot
Not.
instead of like being naughty. And yeah, I'm gonna be moving into the Makers, one of the Makers locations in Park Royal this Friday. So that'll be exciting. And
Do you do you have anything with you that you can?
oh, hold on. I can
They're so cute.
let's see. Where's my,
I
here's
have,
my most recent one I made. So that's an Eeyore.
Cool.
Oh, that's so
Eeyore.
cute. Oh my
There's its little
goodness.
tail. Yeah. And then, yeah, I've made like Eeyores. I've made like giant Snoopies. I've
Oh,
made like, sea
oh
turtles.
my
I
goodness.
think my like favorite one has been I actually met, I don't know if you guys know who Lights is, the singer.
Yeah.
So I met her and made her daughter a crocheted 6 foot tall snake.
Oh my
And she actually
goodness.
like came to my house and I gave it to her and I met her and she signed a record for me and yeah.
Oh,
How long did that
wow.
take?
The 6 foot tall snake, like 10-ish hours.
That's it? Wow.
Wow.
I go really quickly now. When I first started, I took a lot longer, but now I'm a lot faster at it. So I can make things, I think the biggest thing that I've made was like a turtle that was basically half my size. And it took me like 2 weeks on and off to kind of make. I wonder if I can quickly find a photo of it later, but it's yeah, no, it was huge. Oh yeah,
Wow.
here it is.
Wow.
Holy.
Yeah, so took me a couple weeks and then I make things as small as taking me like 10 minutes kind of thing.
Oh,
So yeah, that's
Amazing.
one of them. And I just shipped that little Eeyore. It's like about this long, I would say. I shipped that to Japan last week, so it was my first like order from Asia.
Wow.
And I have shipped to almost, I think like 39 out of 50 states so far. And I've shipped to Germany and the UK. So yeah.
Oh my
that sounds like
goodness.
a very good outlet for for like
Right?
creativity and like finding joy,
Yeah.
especially when there's so much demand and you're getting paid for it. Like, that's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. And like it's great because like I have ADHD too. So like, certain times I have to like mass make a whole bunch of stuff, because I have a market coming up or whatever. But then I get to do like some custom order stuff that's like, more creative and exciting and, bigger stuff. Like I've got a couple orders in April that I get to work on with Yoshi I'm going to be making,
Oh,
and I'm
cool.
going to be making a Pikachu and stuff like that.
Oh, I love that. When you're talking about the Eeyore, that made me smile because, little known fact, I sleep with an Eeyore plushie every single night. Um,
Cute.
yeah, so that's like what sparked my like chest
Yeah,
tingles. I was like,
yeah.
wow,
No,
that's
I
so
love
exciting.
doing.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
well,
so cool.
if you ever want one, I
Yeah,
make
for
like a
sure.
giant one and a small one.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, that's amazing.
and yeah, no, I'm very I I love it so much. It's so much fun to make, stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
this is the difference in sizing of the big one versus the little one.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. That's really cool.
But
Thank you for
yeah, so,
sharing.
doing that, and I also coach wrestling, high school wrestling, and I just we finished provincials in February. And I had one kid get a silver medal and one kid win. So that was really exciting for me as well. So yeah.
Yay. I'm sure that's so fulfilling to see that your kids
Mhm.
get medals.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
Awesome. I would like to move on to the next question here. And this question I'm super excited to hear everyone's thoughts on. But individual joy and community or collective joy, depends on how you want to think about it. Why are both important? I feel like when we're having these conversations of healing and how healing shows up in our journeys, a lot of the time we talk about how the things we do bring us personal joy, but there's always this like collective or community aspect to it. We're doing it with other people or for other people, and that brings us joy. And so I'm curious to kind of break those two things down to understand why both are important and how they kind of work together.
For me, like the other question, joy has been huge part of healing journey. You can't have healing without the joy. threaded through my life. It's just there, and we need it. I can't imagine not having it. Um, the other part that you said, community is so huge. The community joy, like when I started, so many steps, you know, my identity, my Métis, my Indigenous side, my coming out as a lesbian, my now the transition, you know, my transmasculine side. Every step has brought joy, and each community has bring me joy. And when I started sun dancing, the community of women I danced with, because we all have a same common goal or strive for that ceremony. We danced, you know, for 4 days without food or water. The supporters are supporting us. There's so much joy when we complete those ceremonies or any of the activities that we may participate in our life. And when you see each other, you've all had the similar feeling and you get really happy. I get really happy when I see my Sundance family here. I really do. And I know I can leave my door and there'll be someone up Commercial Drive, someone I know that does ceremony with me. And it even blends into further the work I do with, like, say, Anya or even Salal or different people I'm working with as the two-spirit elder. I see the youth in the community. I see the people I work with, and we may be at the Friendship Center. And there's just this lightness in my heart and joy. Like we're family, but not blood family. And it's just something about it. It's beautiful, actually. It makes me so happy.
I
Even
hear
when I'm not
that.
feeling great, it's like I see them, I go, I forgot about shit I'm feeling, whatever it is. And it's just the moment of like, oh, wow. It's all I can say. It's oh, wow. And it's wordless, it's energy, it's feeling. So it's very like collective joy is huge. Like the person, I forgot the person that dances on here. Was it Benny?
Oh yes,
Benny, yeah.
Yeah, dancing is awesome. I love that. Latino dancing drives me crazy. Like, whoa, it's freeing. That's my favorite dance. Like, I'm a dancer at heart. And the erotic side of this is like, it's so freeing. But when you're dancing with others in a dance, that even feels even better yet. And it's freeing, and it doesn't attach to nothing. You see other people's eyes and you're just freely like having a great time. And
Yeah.
it makes me forget about everything. And then I go home and I feel really good for the next however long that lasts for till I get another situation come up. So yes, it's so interlinked, and that's where we know in our world, like we say, all our relations, we are connected, and that brings that word, all my relations, more deeper, like you understand what that really means. We're related, and we did something wonderful together. Even though we have hard times together, we do wonderful things together too. All our creativity, your online gaming is like bang, poof, wow, zowie, and you're like, and you go to bed better. You have a good sleep, good dreams, I hope. It's just, it's, to me, it's catchy. I love it. I can't live without it.
Mhm. Yeah, that speaks to me so much. Thanks for associating those two things. I was reading uses of the erotic just to kind of because like eroticism is joy, right? And I just wanted to kind of like refresh my brain about like things that I'm trying to intentionally um apply to my life. And so um yeah, I loved how you said that. And oh sorry, my sometimes my brain just like hits a bit of a roadblock, and such as life as neurodivergent people, but just one sec, it'll get back online. But oh yes, that's what I wanted to say. So yes, the what that reminded me of is in the essay where she says that um it is like the eroticism is in the satisfaction of um sharing everything that oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the word? Commonalities is not the word, but it is close to the word. Everything that we haven't, I guess, everything that we have in common rather than everything that makes us different from each other, right? And so, like, I think that when I reflect back on all of those times or anything that ever fuels depression, or anything that ever feel or like my isolation or um feeling unwell, it is the idea that I'm isolated, is the idea that I cannot connect to another person, is an idea that I'm alone, right? And so like I really like that. I loved how Audre Lorde put it. I loved how you put it, Bon. that, you know, it is what binds us together is what, you know, cultivates this erotic energy that helps us, you know, see beyond our circumstance and be able to be inspired. Inspiration, I feel like, is a really important, you know, mix in the cocktail of joy, right? It's this whether or not it's inspiration that you'll live another day, or inspiration that like you'll be able to create something beautiful, or inspiration that you yourself are beautiful, you know? It's I I feel fueled to make beauty, whether that I saw your face, Alicia. That was cute. That's so sweet. Yeah, it's that you know, beauty. I think beauty is a part of joy. I think beauty invokes joy, and beauty can be described as so many different things, but it is certainly a thing that um, provokes that feeling in us. You know, whether that's and beauty that can be expressed in like one sense, many senses, like you'd say, like taste, like we were talking about cooking earlier, visual beauty, like scent beauty, I don't know, or like auditorial beauty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Auditory beauty is a big thing for me. I've recently learned the beauty of like taking an edible and then just sitting there with my headphones in, listening to music. It is truly, like, what's the word I'm looking for? A transcendent experience. Like I feel like I'm being lifted out of my body, and it brings me so much peace. So thank you for bringing up all of like the different ways that these senses can evoke these feelings of joy in us. That's really profound. Thank you, Benny.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Thank you for prompting the question. And Bon, thank you for, you know, guiding me into that. I really appreciate that, you know, example. That was so great. And yeah, like sorry if I'm repeating myself, but just to also make sure that I say this, that like when we see beauty in others, then I think we have more compassion for ourselves, or rather we have more compassion for other people, you know, or rather maybe even the other way around. If we see beauty in ourselves, then we have our cups are full and we can extend that to other people, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I feel like so much of like the community work, especially being involved here at Salal, so much of the community work is for the goal of healing ourselves so that the community can heal, and also like outreach and things like that. Like we're just trying to heal the community so that individuals can show up in the work as well. Like being held is such a critical part of healing for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And like when I guess when we are most depressed, it is, I feel like, when we are divided from our community, right? When we are isolated. And so when we can't have that erotic connection with people that share, like in our queerness, for example, right? You know, there's like, you know, when we experience lateral violence, or when we like see that, you know, when we're so divided and we can't see each other, and we're not, we see each other as enemies, you know,
Yeah,
we're 100.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Totally. I love what you said about like seeing each other as enemies. I feel like, especially in like, I don't know if this is just a Vancouver queer scene thing, but there tends to be a lot of like this feeling of like competition or needing to show up in a certain way so that you're seen as like more valid. And that's like, I feel like so counterintuitive to what queerness is about and what like queer joy is about. Like we're in these spaces so that we can like bask in our collective beauty. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, I
I really,
appreciate that.
it totally goes back to what Bon said about being able to even dance with another person and feel their energy and allow your energy to connect with them, right?
Yeah.
I really like the dance analogy is so perfect, because you are present with yourself and you're allowing another person to be present with themselves, and to, yeah, like dance with another person, whether that's actually dancing or whether that's, you know, dancing in another way, allowing the senses to dance. I don't know.
I wanted to add to that dancing and connecting and looking at energy and dancing is like, and this is all done, you know, in a good way. Like you're not zooming in someone's space and coming on to them, like you're making it not a, it's just like there's that moments I've felt dancing and I connects dancing with someone. It's just beautiful energy. I'm not chasing you down, or I'm not interested in you at all. It's like this moment of like, oh man, this is great. It's just, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it
Yes.
makes me think of even like a
Freeing,
round
right?
dance, right? Like the round
Yeah.
dance. And it's like there's nothing sexual behind that. It's we're all in it together, we're holding hands, and there's people of all ages just taking part in this dance and we're laughing, we're just having the time of our lives. And I love what you said, Bon, about even like after ceremony. I know when we had the water ceremony, just seeing you and Cynthia and all of those faces, it's just like I just wanted to smile so hard. Even sitting in our planning meeting yesterday, just seeing your faces,
Yeah, we
I'm
all
like,
know each other. We
oh
dance.
yeah.
We all know what we do in the community. We see each other. We're so
We're
happy.
so excited, so happy, and yeah, it's just so amazing to have that collective joy experience.
And it's nice you witnessed that, Rebecca, because
Mm,
I think that's a good, you're aware of that. And it's good others see that, because then we see the healthiness in there, see the
mhm.
positivity of what can be. And you witness a healthy role model, whatever we're doing. And we're not doing it on purpose. It just happens. So
Yeah,
you're part of it. We're like the children are watching. We're out of, no matter what age, we're still
it's true.
young adults, older adults, are all children and beautiful open eyes. And people benefit from that energy. Like,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
contagious, as
And
other depression is contagious. Like, there's the other scale. It influences. It's beautiful.
hmm. Hmm. And then that trickles down to our younger generation. I have 3 children,
Kids
and
get happy.
yes, kids, it's so important for them to have that experience of collective joy as well,
Yeah.
right? Mm.
I think for me, um, I'll touch on like the community joy first, then the before the individual joy. So like when I went on trail, I started the trail by myself. And I was really nervous about that, and, going to embark on something as big as this and, not having someone to do it with. But there's a Facebook group for the PCT, like class of 2022 kind of thing. And I made a post saying that I was nervous, and they're like, don't worry, you're going to start with yourself and 49 of your closest friends. And I was like, what do you guys mean by that? And it's because you start the trail, 50 people a day can leave a day from March 1st to, I think it's like May 31st from the southern terminus, like from Campo, like, 2 hours from San Diego at the Mexican border to head north to Canada. And I like really like held on to that because I'm like, yeah, we're all in the same boat. A lot of us are not starting with other people. So, now I'm in the class of 2024 PCT group as like someone who has hiked part of the trail, and we give that advice to the new people. So that's like a really big thing. But when I started the trail, I had so many nerves the night before, I could barely sleep. But I got to the terminus. My partner took my photos, and then we said our goodbyes, and I started walking. And by I don't know, like the second mile, I saw my first person, and I was like, hi, and like we chatted. Um, and then we kept going, and they hiked at a faster pace, so they just kept on going ahead of me. And then I got to the first water source, and then there was a whole bunch of people, and all of us we're chatting, we're laughing, we're talking about who's already seen a rattlesnake. So the community on trail like started so quick already. And then by that night I was already camping with two kind of like veteran, kind of older guys. They're both like I think they're ex-Marine, I think. And they were hiking, just section hiking the trail. Um, and we camped that night, chatted. I told them my story about why I was doing this. And they've been like friends forever, and they've like been section hiking like constantly. And then we hiked the next day together, and that was kind of like the first mini group that I met. And then the next day, I met another mini group, and then the next day, so I was constantly like always having people around me. Then I had my first tramily, we call it. So it's like a trail family, and they put the word together for tramily. And that consisted of me and three other guys. Oh, if I can remember their trail names, we got Butterscotch, Roadrunner, and the Northman, which I nicknamed the Northman Hiccup way before he got the Northman. But we kind of hiked together from, mile, I don't know, for a few days. And then they had to go ahead of me because I got slightly injured for 2 days, had to take a 2-day rest. They went ahead of me. And then I was nervous because I was on my own for the first time. And after my 2-day rest, I camped for the first time by myself and there was no one around. And that was my day 7. So on the 7th day, I finally camped by myself. And that was absolutely nerve-wracking. And I cried myself to sleep. And I was like, it was a very interesting moment. But then, the next day I met someone. I call him Trail Dad. He calls me Trail Daughter. He's like 72. So he just actually his birthday's today. He turned 74 today. And I wished him happy birthday and everything. And we hiked together from, I don't know, mile 45 to mile 77 together. So I was constantly always having these people that were with me for certain moments of the trail. And they would just show up when I needed them, and I didn't know who any of these people were when I first met them. Like, absolutely no one did I know from my previous life, kind of thing. And then, I would have families from, me and just one other person to me and 6 other people. At one point, I had a really big tramily going into the Sierra Nevada, and they helped me through a very scary situation where they had to call SOS for me. And I had altitude sickness, and I was not doing great, and I had to get heli evac'd out of the mountains. And, without my community and without my tramily, that would have been a lot scarier. And, for me, I don't even remember part of it because I was going in and out of consciousness and everything like that. But yeah, so for me, the trail community is very big. I still talk to a lot of these people all the time, even the ones that I don't talk to as much. I have their Instagram, they have mine, so we'll see each other's, like, what they're doing, new adventures. A lot of them from trail. The year that I did it, they're doing the AT on the East Coast this year, and stuff like that. So that for me was a really big part of the trail, was meeting those people, and from just a wave hello to me spending multiple days with people and like getting to know them and stuff like that. A few people, like, we like have actually planned and we've hung out off of trail and like done adventures and stuff like that together. So that's been like very important. Um, and then, with regards to the individual joy before trail, I kind of didn't really have anything left. I almost took my own life. I was not, and nothing was going great anymore, besides the escape of, Animal Crossing and movies. There was really nothing more that I could, do. I have a puppy, obviously, we all saw her, and I couldn't even take her out to go pee at night. I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't leave my house without someone there. My partner was a very big pillar that I leaned on. So, finally I felt that I had to like do something, and something popped into my Instagram feed, and it was a view of Panorama Ridge. And I decided I want to go hike it. And I've never hiked in my adult life before. And I decided to go day hike it. So that was like 35 kilometers in a day. And I came home that day after, could barely walk. I did it with my friend, who was my client at the time. I had no gear. So I literally decided on like Saturday morning that I was going to do this. And that day I went to Mech, and I like bought all the gear that I needed, like shoes, and couldn't even find any shoes. So I wore my runners and I had like a huge knife, like a machete, because I was like, I need to protect myself. Like I knew nothing about hiking. I had like a full first aid kit. I did not need all that. I didn't have a backpack. I bought a backpack and I went and I did this. And then I came back from that and my boyfriend was just like, you're so happy. Like, I want this to be you all the time. Like, I see a spark in you that hasn't been back since the assault. And this was just over a year it had happened ago. So he put on the movie Wild for me. And it sounds cliche, but I had never I didn't know about the PCT before that. I had no idea what the Pacific Crest Trail was. And I watched that movie and I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to hike this trail. And he was like, yeah, okay, sure. Like, okay. Like he was kind of putting the movie on for me to go do day hikes and, maybe an overnighter, just to, kind of get a little bit into me, not for me to go do a 6-month insane over 2,600-mile hike. And the next day I got the book Wild. So I read the book too right after. Because I had no idea that Wild was a movie or a book. So the movie was the first thing I did and then the book. And it just ignited everything. So from September 2020 to 2022, every single thing that I did was to make it on trail. And then I knew who I was, and I knew that, every single thing I was doing, I was like little bits of joy were coming in. Every time I bought a new piece of gear, tried it out, didn't work, got a new piece, I was collecting everything. And then, when I finally got to that terminus, I was like, I've done it. I'm here, and now I'm like, that's the hardest battle, is to make it to the terminus, take the time off of work, save up the money, go through all the mental blockage, and then to start it, that's the whole new journey. And it truly was, that's when I learned that life is truly about the journey and not the destination, because the whole journey is 2,650 miles. The destination's right at the end. Like, yes, we're working towards that, or I was working towards that, but I didn't make it there. I didn't finish, but I will go back and I will do that. But like, it was about all the healing and the joy and the everything that came into it. So yeah, that was a very long answer.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really special. Your journey with like the mental battle of like, not being able to return to the things that brought you comfort or joy prior to the assault, to like discovering this one thing just from seeing a picture, and then that one thing, hiking the Panorama Ridge, being like kind of evolving into this 6-month long like going on this trail and like having all these like individual tests is so beautiful and really powerful. And such a testament.
I forgot. After that, I was like, I can't embark on a 6-month journey without trying a couple overnighters by myself, or a couple multi-day, short hikes. My very first multi-day overnight hike, I had to call SOS because I fell down a mountain.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
So I called SOS. They always call, the police calls the next person, like your first person on the list. If they don't answer, they call the next one after that. So my boyfriend, it was like 3 a.m., my boyfriend didn't answer. So it went to my mother. My mom answers and she starts freaking out, constantly calling my boyfriend. He wakes up to a bunch of calls and everything, and it's a whole thing. And that, like, everyone was like, okay, she's not going to keep going after this. Like, she's like, she fell down a mountain, she's done, and that just even made me more wanting to do it. So like, it didn't tear me away from my goal. Because I'd already also reached out to Salal. Yes. Sorry, I'm used to the name beforehand, so I'm trying to switch it. And I already reached out to the other charity, and I already said, like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna raise money, blah blah. So I was like, well, I can't already quit before I even started, so let's keep going. So yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Alyssa's a badass.
Mm.
I feel like the story of your like trials and tribulations on trail. Pun not intended. um, um, Brings me to my next question, relating to catharsis, because I feel like a lot of the time when we're going through our healing journey, we're seeking things that kind of make us feel better, even if they don't feel good right away. We're looking for these methods of release. So I know stereotypically, and what I most commonly hear in a lot of healing spaces is releasing anger, releasing sadness, because those are the emotions that most people struggle with, right? Is not knowing how to express themselves in a way that is healthy, that vents their anger, vents their resentment, allows them to feel the weight of their sadness in a safe way. But I feel like there's something to be said about how joy is very cathartic as well. Um, the catharsis of kind of like coming back to ourselves and discovering like, oh, there is something in this life for me. And so my next question here is, why do you think catharsis is only associated with anger and sadness? And kind of like part B to that question is, what is cathartic about joy? And it's a big question, so feel free to break it up.
Yeah. Just because I just finished, I'm on my mind's still on the thought of it all. Do you mind if I go first
Go
with
for
that?
it. Yeah, of course.
So again, with trail, because that's the huge part of my healing is I owe it all to that part of my life. So for me, when I said the first time that I spent by myself falling asleep, I cried myself to sleep, and it was a very scary, very terrifying thing. Because when I first did my overnight for solo overnight one where I called SOS, I was by myself as well, but I'm also like I was on the island. I'm very close to home. If anything goes wrong, like, I'm home in 6 hours. It's very different than being all the way down in California in the middle of nowhere. Um, so for me, my that catharsis was, uh, fear, sadness, a little bit of anger, all that kind of thing. But there were moments on trail where I would walk, and every step I would take, I would cry joy, like I would cry joyful tears. Um, and then it would switch to sadness. And, I would go through all these emotions in a single day, because you're hiking from, I don't know, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm there for 12 hours hiking, resting, eating, hiking, taking a midday nap, hiking, it's a constant thing. So, when I had those joyful, cathartic moments, and I didn't even realize that they were there until Alicia and I spoke a week and a bit ago, and like kind of like helped me to think of things to say, and kind of like gave me some prompts and stuff. But I would like be on top of a mountain and all of a sudden just start like laughing, and then I would just start crying happy tears, and all these different things. And it was just like a feeling of relief that like I'm coming back into myself. Um, and I had no idea that like this was even really happening. There's a moment too where I was on top of the tallest mountain in the lower 48 states. It's called Mount Whitney. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but finally made it up to that mountain, dealing with altitude sickness, made it to the top, and I was there with, my trail family at the time. And I just like started crying, and they're like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm so happy. Like I've done it. Like I'm literally at the top of like the US." So that was like a very big thing for me. Um and then the other thing is too is I did the trail last year. I attempted to go back to finish in 2023 what I missed in 2022. And I didn't get very far, unfortunately, because it was the highest snow year ever recorded in like the last 50 years or something. So I was forced to stop. But the first year I was with people almost all the time. Even when I didn't really want to be around people, there's constantly people around, and I needed it at that moment, at that part. But the second time I did the trail, I was by myself almost the whole time, and I actively sought out to be alone, and I actively sought out, and I would hike further or stop my day earlier if I was going to be camping around people because I knew that they were like going to end up where I wanted to camp. I would stop earlier or I would hike further so I could be by myself. And that was just such like a freeing and joyful moment, and coming into myself and being okay with being alone for like the first time ever. That was just like an incredible, like very cathartic feeling when I, did my first camp by myself and I like purposely planned it. So yeah, that was another big thing and a huge step in my healing journey too, because I'm pretty comfortable and happy and all that by myself. Like all of my hiking trips that I'm doing this summer are all going to be by myself. Like I'm, that's what I like to do now. If someone asks me, I'll be like, oh yeah, sure, we can go on a hike. But like I'm not going to actively search for people myself. And that is like a huge shift from being absolutely terrified to be alone in my own thoughts and to be by myself and to not trust being by myself. Like to not trust me being by myself, like my own brain and everything, to now just being like, I'm okay. And that's, yeah, it's amazing for me.
I love that. I love that moment of like being able to look at where you came from and where you started and really take stock of how far you've come. That is a huge transition.
Yeah.
Going from like never having hiked and then being afraid to hike alone to now being able to do everything by yourself because you trust your body and you've gone through that journey of like, I've done all these incredibly difficult things and I've been okay, and actually it's healed me. I love that. I love to hear that. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. It's
Thank
really
you.
Does anybody have
Someone
anything?
else can go now.
Just
That
to
was
remind
just
you,
so amazing just to think about your cathartic feelings of joy and the tears and the laughter and just like the way you explained it, I can just visualize that. Like it's just amazing to go on that journey with you right
Thank
now, just such
you.
a journey of resilience and strength.
I'll also like put the Instagram, that was the one that I posted everything about too. It was so on Instagram, I'm the BC backpacker. And there's a couple pinned photos as well where it like talks about it and like coming to that healing and all that as well. Um, so yeah, you guys are free to read that if you'd like and all
The
that.
BC backpacker, you said?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat too. It's
Okay,
the
thank you.
BC backpacker. Um, but and even like things in my highlights and stuff too, you can like kind of like see the journey. And like I was
Wow.
very my goal of that Instagram was to be very real all the time. So like I'm crying in some of the videos and I'm not okay in some of them. And so yeah, this is uh and the second hike, it didn't end. It ended actually on the day of my assault, on the anniversary. And I don't think I've actually told anyone that yet, except for my close friends and family. So this is me saying it. It's not the way I wanted it to end. I wanted to push through that day, but for some reason that day, what was it? 4 years later, it broke me. But it was a it was a crack, not a break, I guess, because the year before when I was on the trail, that day showed up while I was hiking, or it was actually on a rest day, thankfully. But I was in the middle of nowhere. And it was one of those places where you have to hike in. There's a campsite area, there's food, whatever, and then you have to hike out to get back on trail. But it was on that trail, and I cried, but it started with sad tears and then it became happy tears, and I was like, I've come so far, I'm here, blah blah blah. And then last year, it was a bit of a shift backwards, but it didn't last in my brain really, because that day I was battling, I was sick. And all these things were happening, and I was doing the calculations in my head with the snow, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to keep going forward and actually be able to make the amount of miles that I wanted. It's mid-July. I want to go home. I want to see my dog, spend the rest of the summer with her, and I want to come back to trail when I'm ready to go from start to finish again, and like come back and wait a few years and wait for my get into another decade of my life too, to see how my shift has changed. And yeah, it ended on that day, and it was a really hard day. And then the next, the week leading after that, I was like, okay, do I come back? Was it, because they always say never quit on a bad day, and that's what I did.
Well, I
But
was just
like,
gonna say that saying "never quit on a bad day," I feel like is uh so I don't know what word I'm going for, apt or accurate to describe the journey of healing as well, because it's so cyclical. Like healing is, people always say healing is not linear, and it's not. Like this is just proof for like, you
exactly.
can end on a bad day, but you're gonna come back. Like it's going to,
I called all my friends and my family, like the close friends and my mom and my boyfriend and my everything. And I was like, I called them crying. I'm like, I'm done my hike right now. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I just kind of told them, and they're like, you know what? Like, that's okay. You can
yeah,
come back. Like, they're like, are you planning on finishing the trail? And I was like, oh yeah. Like, there's
yeah,
not a doubt in my mind that I will not come back and do it again, and probably come back and raise money again and do all that. Like, so because then they were all like, well, then yeah, let yourself stop for now, because it's just like the semicolon. It's like you're coming back. It's not like I'm stopping and never coming back, because then at that point, then I've quit. If I never come back and I just end it, to me, I've quit in my soul. But for me, it was a I'll be back kind of moment. And it was more of like, okay, right now, the most important thing is for me to get back and to actually have a summer with my dog, because I missed the last one being on the
mhm,
trail. And, it was really hard on her and I. And yeah, so it was a really difficult day. But after that, and that whole second time on trail was difficult, because I was there for a month, then I had to come back for a month, wait for snow to melt. It didn't. I still came back. I still tried. I made it like another 2.5 weeks before I stopped. Like, it was not what I wanted to happen,
yeah,
but it was in its own thing. Like, if I had never done it, I wouldn't have realized that I was camping by myself and hiking by myself and okay with that. And I wouldn't have reached that like catharsis moment in myself where I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay in my own body. I'm okay in my own brain. And not all the time, obviously, like, but 9 times out of 10, I'm okay now. So if I hadn't gone through all that, if I hadn't quit on that day, that wouldn't have happened. So
exactly. And that like that cycle of I'm gonna come back within itself is catharsis, releasing that control and saying like, it's not working out for me right now, but I'm going to try again later, or I'm going to try something new, and
exactly.
I'll continue on in a different way. That release of control within himself is very cathartic. And I love
Yeah,
that you had
yeah.
that experience
So I've
as
had
well.
some people be like, "Oh, you failed," and I'm like, "In your mind, I did, but not in mine.
Yeah,
Not in
let's,
the mind of the countless women and men and of every single gender who has messaged me saying, I got out of bed this morning because I saw you hiked 18 miles and cried on top of this mountain, and you're dealing with extreme chafing pain and like all this stuff." I'm like, that I didn't fail to those people, and I didn't fail to myself, and I didn't fail to my family or to my friends. I failed to a complete stranger who knows nothing about me.
yeah. And
Boo-hoo.
that ties so perfectly into what we were talking about before too, that collective joy, that community joy. Like the people who are on my side are happy for me, and that is healing. That is so
Yeah,
healing. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, like I have messages saved, like screenshots when people like, they read my news articles that have come out, or they heard on the
Mm.
radio my story, because I did a couple like voice things on the radio with some interviews, and literally sought me out to say, like, I'm sharing your story with my daughter who's going through this in her school. She was assaulted, school won't do anything, all these different things. And I've had so many people say, like, you've inspired me to go for my own, pardon me, for my own like walk by myself,
Mm.
because a lot of people are really scared, but really want to go do solo activities. They want to travel, they want to go be that person that can, do a road trip by themselves, but they're so afraid to do it. So I'm always, I'm always like, message me if you need some help, because yeah, I was scared to do it. And I cried myself to sleep some nights, and I walked and cried sometimes, but I did the scary thing. And I there's not to say that I'm not going to be scared again when I'm hiking and, come across something that worries me, or, something like that. But the point is, if you don't do things that are unfamiliar to you, then you're not going to grow as a person. You're not going to uncover this joy that you never thought you would have had from hiking, like, for me, and, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Thank you. To remind everyone of what the question was, just so we can reframe the conversation here. Why do you think catharsis is only associated with anger or sadness? And what is cathartic about joy? I know for myself, when I'm feeling particularly angry or upset or what have you, I've gotten the comment a lot throughout my life. And I'm very grateful for people who are observant around me, but they say that I'm really good at managing my anger. And so, what I mean by that is I'm very in touch with my anger. And I think I've been doing that for a lot of my life, unknowingly as a release. I used to be a very, very angry person for a lot of my adolescence and early 20s. And learning how not to be angry has actually been very cathartic for me. And I don't know if, Rebecca, maybe you have experience being a counselor here at Salal, working with survivors who needed to tap into that anger or needed to reframe what healing was so that joy was part of that journey for them.
Yeah, just thinking about when you have a wound, and you put a Band-Aid on it and you don't actually clean the wound and you don't take care of it, right? It can become an infection. Same with anger and sadness. We have to acknowledge the grief in order to be able to experience the cathartic feeling of joy, right? And so the opposite of that would be laughter. And so thinking about even remembering our ancestors workshops that we had in February, I think it was, they were all in reference to healing through laughter, healing through comedy. We had a beautiful woman join. She's actually my cousin Annie. She's a comedian. And just thinking about how we can access those feelings of joy when dealing with traumas is, it's so important to have that. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think you did. I think you did. The act of actively seeking out joy through things like comedy that are intentionally meant to be funny and intentionally meant to spark joy, but using it as an outlet is exactly catharsis. So I think that was
and also celebration, just thinking of what Alyssa shared, and reaching that however far you reached in your journey, right? It's like you did that, and that's a celebration, looking back and being able to share your story, right? And that's a cathartic feeling of joy, is celebrating milestones and different ventures in our lives.
Yeah, I love that.
I saw the gears turning for Bond. So
Yeah, the gears are turning there. I was going to say, why do you think catharsis is only associated with anger? It's because mostly that's what people are talking about, or we're witnessing all the time. And I don't know if people even notice the happy stuff sometimes, maybe we're tuned into more of that than the joy stuff. And I've never thought of joy as cathartic, but it certainly is, because we're all expressing it today in the experiences, right? And the healing that does give us, the things that we're afraid of. And yeah, I think because it's that what we're used to. Cathartic belongs to the hard stuff to me in my world. I think of that, the hard things to overcome, and then the joy shows up. And it's like, yeah, it's healing too. It's huge. It's huge, and especially healing over anniversaries or things that have hurt us in the past, and you're in that situation, and it doesn't have that hold on you anymore, that pain or the intensity or whatever that situation was, and then you may be in the same situation. It's this doesn't bother me anymore. There's no trigger to it. There's no catharticism that makes spirals me somewhere. It's just like hey, it's not there so much. It's gone. It's there, but it's seen as in a different light. You feel it. It feels really good actually. So yeah, so that's what my share will be for this at this moment. There might be more, but carry on, Ben.
Um, I guess maybe we can, depending on where my thought goes, we can hot potato the idea. But I think catharsis, you know what? I think the first thought I have when I think about that question is I don't think I've ever not associated joy with catharsis.
Mm.
Um, I think I think maybe my theory when um, reflecting on the nuance of what you're trying to ask is I think um, perhaps maybe it's just a product of westernized thinking, of colonial thinking, of like all like absolutes even, you know, it's like, oh, um if joy is not a priority, maybe, then or you know what Bon uh sparked in my mind was I guess confirmation bias, you know, or perspective. Um if you were focused on all of the hurt, whatever you define that as in your life, I think that you will only ever, oh yeah, you will only ever understand everything that you experience through that lens. And so um, I think that if you are approaching your life through, you know, uh, through like a certain mindset or a certain or like a like an intentional perspective, then there's so much more room to experience joy because we are, you know, picking up on all these serendipitous small things. You know, whether we believe in signs or whether we, you know, are in tune with our ancestors, for example, or you know, like whether we are in tune with ourselves. You know, we like take like for example, it's sunny in my apartment. I can take the ray of sunshine as oh, what a perfect serendipitous moment during this like very vulnerable, like profound talk as ooh, the universe is aligning and like that's wonderful, you know. And I don't have to approach it. Oh, cynicism. I I just had a moment of like, what am I talking about? Oh, it's cynicism. I would like I when I yeah, it's like this you know, you have like I think if when I reflect on my own journey of, you know, whether I believed in signs or whether I was in tune with my spirituality or not, I you know, I think about that. I think about oh, my brain's doing that thing again. About you know, oh my, what was the word that cynicism, right? My relationship with my cynicism and my, you know, trying to balance whether, you know, I could experience that moment of joy. Like I can take this moment of sunshine as something beautiful and nice. Like we were talking about beauty earlier. I can take little moments of, you know, whatever it is in front of me and I can oh yes, I can apply certain thoughts to it. You know, there's so much work I can imagine in your work, especially you, Rebecca, being a counselor, you know, trying to um, rewire people's thinking because, you know, people's thoughts impact who they are, how they interact with the world, how they engage with everything. And so um, yeah, that's taken from my own experience of measuring my cynicism and, you know, allowing it to be the narrative in my mind, be how I engage with the world, how I engage with my friends or my family, or, you know, even I guess my love or like, you know, anything. If I engage with it in a cynical way, then I am writing this, I'm creating um, what is that word? A
Preconceived notion.
yes, yeah, a self-fulfilling destiny, right? Because like I don't know, you know, I could if we approach, you know, risks, very like beautiful risks in our life, like for example, falling in love or, you know, um, doing a dream job or, you know, pursuing our eroticism. If we approach it with a cynical mindset, we might ruin that beautiful part about us because we're not because we're focused on all the things that are going wrong, or all the missed connections, or all the things of all the ways that are falling short. And so it is so integral to approach, or to find, to ignite that joy, and ignite that childlike wonder, ignite our eroticism, and validate joy as a catharsis, if it is not within this very Western white capitalist reality we live in.
Period. I really love what you said about how the cynicism can kind of shape our pathways so that anything we interact with is kind of what's what I'm looking for, like painted with that brush. And so I think that's why a lot of like my personal healing journey has been perspective shifting, and trying to change my way of thinking so that I'm open to better. I'm open to healing, and open to joy. I feel like so much of like the victim narrative, or like the idea that someone has been harmed, comes with so much expectation that someone should show up in a certain way, and when we don't show up in that way, there's kind of like confusion from the people around us, from the systems around us, about like, you were harmed, so you should actually be sad, but you're not. You're exploring joy, and that's weird. And I think that is such like a white capitalist heteronormative way of like approaching community and healing. And so I just really appreciate that perspective.
And also like cis men projecting too. Like I couldn't tell you how many people that were male were telling me like, oh, like you're fine. Like you're not like, you didn't really go through anything like that bad, right? Like, I was like, excuse me. Like basic, like just to go into more about the trail, and like, yeah, cis men basically is every single time that something happened where I had to get off trail for a bit, like what is it, mile 100, very close into the trail, all of a sudden I woke up, stepped, couldn't walk, and I was off trail for a month. And everyone's like, you're not going to get back on. You're not going to, so there's everyone who was not in my corner, who didn't know me, did not understand my determination and my drive and my commitment to basically everyone else that I was, that I had support through, the survivors that I was trying to, support by doing what I was doing. But like also myself, I'm like, there, for me, I was like, I don't have a choice, because for myself, I have to come back to trail. So then I got back on, and then, was hiking, and then I got sick, and I got what was it, laryngitis and an inner ear infection. And I was off for 2.5 weeks again. And then I got back on, and not even a week later, I got hit with heat exhaustion, almost into heat stroke, and I had to get off again. And I actually had to skip a large part of the desert because of that whole month off. I had to, like, when I came back, it was extremely hot now because I was still in the desert when I took that time off. So then I, came off, skipped ahead, kept going, and everyone was like, not everyone, obviously, but the people who were not in my corner, the people who were not cheering me on, those people were like commenting and, messaging me and saying like, you're not like, you don't deserve to be out here. You shouldn't be out here. And, just kind of like keeping, so I had that in the back of my mind, but also it was like kind of like water off a duck's back at the same time. Cause I'm like, you don't know what I went through. You weren't there when I went through the initial aftermath of the assault. So yeah, I was like, your opinion does not matter. And sometimes like it would seep into the cracks and I would feel it, and I'd be upset over it. But like for the most part, I was like, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
So very, big thing, like because you were talking about like resilience and stuff like that too. So yeah, no, it was constant, like just getting back on trail. Had to get back on trail. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that segues really nicely into my next and final question here. Talking a lot about how Western white capitalist society really views healing in one way. A lot of the time, it's like through therapy, through self work, through shadow work, through, um, you know, in order to overcome depression, you have to get medicated, you have to, take up exercise, etc. All of these things. And I feel like the common narrative of healing that we are so familiar with through these systems is so exclusive of queer and trans experiences and so exclusive of healing through queer and trans spaces. And so the final question I would like to pose to this group here is, what about this common narrative is exclusive of trans and queer experiences, and what perhaps can we do to support a more inclusive healing space? Again, big question. We can break it up.
Mm-hmm. So this is a question that I was sitting with, and I spoke to you, Alicia, about this. Speaking from an ally perspective, and also what came to mind was just ceremony, right? And then we had a meeting earlier this week, and we were talking about, how do we make the space safe? How do we make it inclusive? And so wording on our poster is so important. And so something that we have added was to come as you identify, come as who you are. If you want to wear a ribbon skirt, wear it. If you don't. It's like you are welcome to be expressive of who you are without discrimination. And this is the kind of spaces that we are hoping to create at Salal, right? And when we do community ceremonies, especially because, the public is coming. And so that's something that came to mind for me. Also creating spaces, that is representing folks such as art, media. Those are just some thoughts that have come to my mind.
I wanted to say something about that. Thank you for doing that. I noticed that yesterday, by the way. Oh, wow, this is great. And we actually did that at our Sundance. We redid the sign, my friend and I, and we put it on the things to prepare for Sundance. When people come on the land, we redid the sign, and that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as we do our Indigenous ceremony, there's this protocol that's from, I think it was a colonial adapted, that the gender stuff and the clothing apparently has stuck in some of our communities quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're attempting to undo that. And I appreciate that you did that yesterday. On another note, the same thing about this long ago. I started doing dance class, was line dancing back in the 80s at the Gandhi Dancer, and it was neat because we were all learning to line dance, and I loved learning to dance. And then there was parts, and I wasn't with that group or dancing in other places, like you want to do a dance class. Well, they say they lined the men on one side of the gym and the women, and they assume that the men will lead and the women follow. So in dance classes that I was at after, the people who were doing the dance class were aware of this. So they would, because they were queer themselves, and they say the leads on this side and the follows of this on this side of the room. So it didn't matter what gender you were, you just went on the follow or the lead side and you did your dance class. Mm-hmm. So that's one example that it's categorized that in these places where we want to attempt to heal, like say groups, being who I am. I'll speak for myself, especially, the spiritual side and the ceremony side has really affected me. And I just can't go to any ceremony outside of my area here where I live, where with Rubens and our circle. And I can go down to Vermont because I know that group of folks, but there's nowhere else I'm going to go. And I went to a Sundance with my friend. They right away, as soon as we walked on the land, everybody was resting and the day of dance was over, and they spotted me and my friend. And right away, these men came and they said, well, you got to wear a skirt. Like they told us you have to put a skirt. I says, well, that doesn't apply to me. I said that twice. And I says, well, they said, well, that's what we were told. So they leave. So then they go to someone, and I already know what they do. When you say no, they seek out the person higher up in that circle of ceremony. So this woman comes to us. And of course, she's a woman who leads the ceremony, who is given to her from her father. She comes to us and me and says, well, you'll have to put a skirt on. I says, well, that doesn't apply to me. I'm two-spirit. Well, she says, well, you still will have to. And I says, well, I can't do that, you know. And she says, well, by the way, we have sun dancers here that are in our arbor, she tells me. And I didn't even go to that part of questioning, because what do you have them wearing skirts too, or dress, you know? So I didn't ask that. But after 3 times of telling her that wouldn't apply to me, it wouldn't work, I left. And I left there very angry, and I was crying. I'm like in my 60s here. I've been doing ceremony for 30 years as myself. And when I go to new circles that aren't like our cis run, I'll use that term, I cannot go anymore. I was crying my eyes out. I got angry at myself for even thinking I could be there as I was. And why I was like that is because where I live here in this community, I am accepted. I can walk where I want pretty well. I feel pretty freeing, and it's very healing. So that feels good. I feel I can go anywhere. And then when I did, I was like, oh man, I'm reminded, right? And so now I've decided I won't just go to any ceremony I don't know of anymore. I'm tired. I'm old. I'm just tired of having to face that. I just want to go and be part of it the way I am and pray and reap the healing from that ceremony. So in a sense, that was healing and eye-opening. But yeah, it's really important, those things, how we set up healing situations for us, for me, for two spirits, and whichever way we are, because sometimes we don't fit in. And imagine going to these things and we got to think about that. Like, I don't want to have to. I just want to go reap the beautiful healing you can get, from whatever things we do in the world. That it's frustrating. So yeah, this is a good thing to talk about. Quite a good, Rebecca, you mentioned this, and that's why I look to folks like yourself and my allies, is that I'm tired. I need you guys to do this work. You figure out how to word it, and you can advise with me or some people, what words could we use that would work better, and we could hash it out, figure it out, because I am tired. And when we made that sign at Rubens that summer, me and Evelyn made the sign. We changed that one category. I got it printed. I brought it there. They all liked it. And I gave it to the cis men to put the sign up. I went, here's the sign. Go put it up somewhere. Like in the past, I probably would have nailed the sign and figure out. I says, I don't care where you put it. Just now, you guys just got to put it up on the tree or the piece of 2x4 on the driveway there. So they did. So that was the part. And the beautiful part too about this is that when we're doing these things together, and this is back to the other question about community, is once the people get to know each other, like they're more with two spirits and we're with the cis folks that aren't, they get to know us, and we know who you guys are pretty well, I think, but because we're in the world all the time. But to be with us, and then you get to hear some of our stories and you witness us, and that's where the allyship kicks in, because we have friendships and we know each other. And that's where I have found it beneficial in the past 4 or 5 years now. It's like I tell my Sundance brothers, who are straight as ever, and I tell them what happens. Like, some are close to me. There might be 3 or 4 or 2, it don't matter. And when Sundance is over and then I start sharing stuff, I do different ceremonies, they hear some of my story. Actually, I'm honest with them. And then I'm asking them now to take care of it. I'm also speaking up for the women who get abused and things going on for the females. Says, you know what you got, what the women want, you guys got to take care of it yourself and heal yourself and look after. And they're tired of telling you about this, so I'm even giving them information how to take care. They want us to just go take care of it, and we want to see how you're doing it too, and role models. So that's what I'm doing. Y'all don't know that, but that's what I do. And that only happens because I have friendships with everybody, and I've been in ceremony, and that only happens too because I also hear their stories, and some of them aren't great either. We're all in this together, but now I speak for them too in some ways. Depends what are things that have come up. And that's I call that the informal culture that's healing. That's not advertised online, or you got to sign up for a weekend and pay $500 for it. This is the informal healing that happens every day. And that's that relationship building and community. And then out of that, you get joy. So, like I have my two spirit lodge, and I got a cis man that's my Hayoka brother, and he does the fire keeping for the Anya sweats. And he's safe to be around. I wouldn't just have anybody doing that fire. And I don't know if people know this, what happens when we run sweat lodges, especially me. I'm very conscious who's in my circle, who's going to help the people. I just don't pick any. And even if there's a cis guy in my circle, some of them don't fit for my circle. I won't ask them, right? But there's some that do. And I'm conscious of that. And the neat part is, even when I do the sweat, I say it's just two spirits. Sometimes someone comes in, slips in there, that's not two spirit. Could be female cis or male cis, indigenous person or not. And they want to come because they love me and they want to be with me and be in my lodge. I know that. I know those relations. And then I tell them, I said, you guys can't all come here because we need our space. So I tell them that, because some of them don't even know this. They're not dumb. They don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And then, so some slip in one or two, and it's okay because I'm kind of keep track of that too. And what's the beautiful part when I've witnessed that happen is they get to be in a sweat that there's no male female side. So they're kind of awkward with that. They're like, oh, they go in the lodge. And then they get to be with, say, maybe there's only two spirits there, me and one or two of them. They get to be with us in our culture, like the jokes we tell after and the fun we have. Like, it's a different culture how we relate as queers together. And so they get to be the odd people out for a change. And they are quiet watching us interact. And I think that's healing. So some will slip in, and I have found that through the years how beneficial that. Actually, this gives me goosebumps because the tables are turned and they have to watch how we are doing our ceremony, because they're invited to my lodge that way. And they still help with the prayers, and they're actually pretty quiet half the time. And that's only because there's only one or two. When you get more, then they get bossy and they're trying to leech stuff. It's like, get out of here, right? Especially the dudes, right? Or they come in and interfere with my fire keeper. One guy would come and he's with his eagle fan, fanning the fire with his fan and telling my helper. And then he leaves, and I tell my helper, I says, please never pick up my eagle fan and fan that fire, because if it burns, you're going to be in trouble, man. You use the Tupperware lid and the Rubbermaid lid and fan. So that's an example where they step in helping. So
helping, right?
Yeah, helping. Yeah, thinking, get out of here. Blow your fire the way you want. You're not using your fan here. You're damaged that beautiful fan. Lots of other things to blow with. But those are the things that the spaces are crucial, that the healing. Yeah, there's things that get in the way, that we can't just walk everywhere. Some of us can name them here in the circle and I mentioned even not ceremony, had to do with regular dancing, right? Dance class, that, and some of them that are on ball with that, they will say lead and follow. Now, I don't think everybody does that though. And then those connections I make that with the cis folks, because I have a relationship like with you, Rebecca. We have this relationship, this trust. So now I feel comfortable. I can say things to you if I want to change it. And then I listen to you too when we work it out together. And we know some stories, and we know we've all been harmed in the world. Like, for all our things, we have us, and we're able to listen, like I am anyway. And I'm hope that you are, or the people that are close to me are, because that's what relationships are, right? You get that collectivity, that joy, that, yeah. And I get pretty happy when they take care of stuff, right? I got other stories, but it's like, you guys take care of it. I'm tired. I just say, I'm tired. And sometimes a story I'll tell and I'll start crying. I says, I can't do this anymore. You're going to figure out the people come to Sundance and tell them, because we're not. You guys now we're here. You got to figure out how to do this, right? And I step back, because when we're always addressing stuff, making a change, it's tiring. It does. And even in the field you're all doing, it's tiring, and it's nice when your friends and people are getting it and they're supporting you and mentioning things. And it's at those dinner table conversations, in your neighborhood. And that's what matters, because then it catches, and then oh, do you know what these people told me? Do you know what really happens? Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like so much of this is kind of a like relevant adjacent topic, but I was actually speaking to a consultant that works with Salal about how Salal changed our name from Weba to Salal to be more inclusive. And I made a comment about how it's beautiful that we made this change because we want to be more inclusive. It's just unfortunate that the spaces for marginalized folks are the only ones doing that. We are the only ones working towards inclusivity. What about, other spaces that are closed spaces that are working for, like, that claim to be working for inclusivity, but then don't make that safe environment for everybody to show up as they are. So I really love what you said about like sharing that community and like that the dinner table conversations being like ground zero for building
Yeah.
understanding and mutual respect. Yeah. And showing up to closed events, knowing your position, I feel like is a big thing that people miss.
For sharing
I
that.
wanted to add one thing here that's funny, just a split. I was peeling my orange, and this big orange is in my face, and I go, did you know aromatherapy, the orange has got to do with joy and laughter? It makes you happy. Just a little bug in your ear, you guys. That's all.
I think I knew that because I think neroli is related to oranges somehow, or maybe I'm thinking of bergamot. But neroli is another scent that is really commonly used associated with happiness. And so yeah, that's really
Very
smart.
well.
I thank you so much for saying that, Bon. It provoked so many different thoughts on some of the reflections that I had in anticipation for this chat. Yeah, I just want to, mirror and kind of riff off what you were saying about queer spaces and the reality in which we try to shove ourselves through, I guess. I I learned, I had a huge, growth and understanding, I think, over the last few years about how how the therapy industrial complex is not built for people like us. It is within the model of cis heteronormative patriarchal capitalist colonial underline bold structures. And so like our healing is through that lens always. It is Western. It is like does not have honor. And how are we supposed to heal through capitalism? How are we supposed to heal through white supremacy? How are we supposed to heal through patriarchy? Right? I think
Community joy.
Sorry?
Community joy.
Yeah. I would, it's, I mean, yes, that is one product.
Like
And
finding your people, I mean, and then, together it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. And that is inherently anti-colonial or decolonial, whatever term you want to use. Like the act of finding your people in a world that has been made to exclusively exploit other people, finding your people and sharing that community and sharing a common goal and finding that mutual respect and understanding and joy as a result is the antithesis of colonialism for sure. So
you know what I'll say, I'd like to continue that thought a little more because it is a much more complex thought than that. And it is more of an answer for like the trans people in the chat. No offense, Alyssa, but it's a little harder to answer the question, especially if it's such a complex question. If it's interrupted by like a cis thought. So No,
Sorry.
just start. That's okay. I do want to continue that. Like, this is, it was well intentioned, but yeah,
Mhm.
I just want to continue on it more. That like I said, this, the place in which we are told to seek healing does not serve people like us. Whether that's trans, queer, QT BIPOC. We are not equipped in order to, or we are not set up for success in order to attain a healing that is, holistic for us. We are given models that work for cishet white people, cishet straight white people within patriarchy. It is, we are given tools that do not fit what we need to be in order to be resilient in this world, right? Um, and that speaks to so much of our queer, trans, like BIPOC ability to work this part of our brain that has been deconstructing since since we start our lives, because we're not set up in the same way that allows the reality around us to continually uplift cishet white straight people, right? And so um what I mean, I'm not quite sure how to answer the common narrative of like the question, but I guess more any opportunity we can have to advocate for the fact that like we have to do so much labor in order to understand ourselves, be self-defined, and then like Bon was saying, create these spaces that then are at risk to be intruded on by cishet people. And it's really sad. I was talking to my partner the other day about this, about the work that has gone on for since before I like for eons, about or eons, I don't think that's accurate, but it's with this colonial Western um system that holds queer, that boxes queer people and oppresses queer people. um we um there is so much honor that is due to people who have um been resilient and have lost their lives, and who have, you know, fought in order for all of us to feel more comfortable in our queerness, for queerness to become more mainstream, for us to be able to have queer spaces, where something can be so blatantly out there and obvious. It's like, oh, the queer party's over there. It doesn't have to be as underground. And now, it's a product of that is now seeing, queer spaces like those be infiltrated by people who get to explore their queerness. Good for you. However, this is something that I've lived with my whole life. I have to I have to seek out spaces in order to be my full self, in order to be respected, in order to have a chance at reaching that joy eventually. But it's like, I mean, trying to find safety in a world where it's like again, like Bon said, where um, people who get to benefit from that radical fight, but not necessarily have had, who might be able to, for example, like assimilate, who can assimilate easier to this reality. They get to just encroach on our space, and it's that I think we are in like a reckoning, or a time where people can try to explore like better boundaries in event making, for example, or I don't know, in like community strategic planning, I guess. Like it's this is a very fruitful time for community to come together and be able to, analyze how far we've come and see how far we still have to go. But yeah, I think that like that is all to say that any opportunity that is given to QT BIPOC people to be able to name the fact that this system does not work for us, that, like someone like me, for example, I'm a mixed race, trans mask person. How many trans mask, mixed race, or even BIPOC people who are RCCs in Vancouver can you name? Barely any, right? and awesome for the people who are trying to make it, but this is a dominated space by white women. So, I mean, how are people like me supposed to benefit from models that are given to me that work for maybe them, but can't possibly work for someone like me? It doesn't work for me to, what was an example of like, maybe a model that is sometimes used in counseling. It's like, maybe, at a time of feeling extremely traumatized, like, oh, maybe apply gratitude. Oh, that doesn't work for me because I'm someone who does not experience the world in the same way as like maybe someone who's white, who has, financial wealth, or who benefit, like is, in a different class than me. So like I don't have the same resources as some of these structures are able to empower and uplift other people within a certain class, but not me, you know, especially not, I guess, like um, oppressed people, like I was yeah, going to speak a little more about like BIPOC intersections, but maybe Bon, can you speak to that at all? Like, have you, does any of this relate to you? Do you have, any insight on, how these models don't work for people like us?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of course, yeah.
It's like I could tell you, like as you were speaking, it made me think of there's an organization called Mivis out there, and they offer like a dance, that's well-buried dance or whatever. Oh, come, we'll dance. And then I was like, oh, I want to go, but because my friends who I do ceremony are mostly cis, right?
Mhm.
And then I actually think about, no, I don't want to go dance with them. That would be icky for me.
Mhm.
I want to just dance with my own kind, right? Because again, if I go put myself there, I have a different kind of fun. It wouldn't be the same because just let's just say they just are different. Even how sexually, like, I mean, there's just stuff happening that's different that for me it wouldn't work. So I've physically chosen, no, I'm not going to go have fun and dance with them in social situations because I need to be with folks like us, but like and a
Mhm.
night dancing and I have fun and it's just easy peasy, it's comfortable. So
Mhm.
that's just one thing, there's so many arenas. Even when I go to a healing circle that's not too spirited, I can't think about I go, how did they advertise? They actually didn't even advertise that we're welcome to be in this circle. Like they did a grief and healing workshop. I went anyway because I know the folks, I'm fine. But I thought about people that could be like me or present different. They may not go because they didn't see anything advertised on the flyer. Like they say, it's men and women, it's a grieving workshop, but we're not noticed that we're not on there. So every time I see stuff like that, I wonder how I will fit in that circle.
Mhm.
Like, where do I go in that circle or how they'll be able to hear me? So, again, this is the same thing as I spoke earlier. When I go into those certain places, because I do need help with grieving, and I go, and luckily I feel secure in myself and I have a space in the community, and I actually turn around that I really need some help. This is all there's to it. So I go. But there's folks that are unable to do that. And those are the folks I'm thinking about. Like when I was in that workshop, they didn't even know, I was talking about trans stuff or queers, all the LGBTQ plus words. And then in the end, they said they didn't know what all that meant, the last
Mhm.
day of circle. And then they were initiating to train their staff. And they reached out to me, and I thought, well, I can't do this work myself. So I got someone else to help with. I don't know if they ever did. So that was the opening to that. So that was like even in our indigenous community, and there's help and healing. Sometimes we don't fit in there. Um, Again, they're organizing for the Missing Men and Women March, for the men march. And I was part of that a few weeks ago, and I went with Anya, and I was going to support Anya because they were invited. And I just wanted to see what they know, and they didn't still know enough about us. And I'm tired. I'm like, I want to call to this meeting, but don't look to us for answers. You guys got to, if you're going to do the Missing Men's March, you better include in your flyers or address the two spirits too here that
Mhm.
were marching for us too. And again, they get forgotten there. So everywhere trickles. There's a trickle in those surroundings, bang, and others in the circle listening to me. It's hard, it's not easy sometimes, again, because the main world is set for cis people. even counseling sessions. You're picking your counselor for various reasons. It could be Indigenous. Okay, if I go to Indigenous counsel, well, did they know enough about queer stuff? And what if I'm poly, right? I got the polyamory part of my life now too. It's like that adds another thing that's got I'm doing, and that's not easy either.
Mhm.
So you're seeking out people who could actually listen and help me. And some things get set aside and you work with other, I mean, again, it's not like I go, I need to work on this at a session, because stuff is intermingled like we've seen today. It's not easy. It's not just like, oh, today I'm going to deal with this. And that's not what comes up, right?
Yeah. I
So,
really
yeah,
thank you.
maybe that brought up some thoughts for you that made you remember things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the thing that stood out the most is, these models that aren't necessarily built for us. Like if I go to a therapist like you're saying, if I go to a BIPOC therapist, but they're not queer, they see my intersections as a trans person as potentially like through the Western colonial understanding of transness. So they see me as a trans man and they're like, oh, okay, like um you were born less than. Your body is like that, the understanding, and I had to deconstruct this for myself. My body was an inconvenience. Like, oh, I was born in the wrong body. And for anybody who watches this, or, who anybody who eventually hears this, like I wish so much peace for you, because it is like, the idea that like something went wrong in the universe and I am this, being that got the short end of the stick. And that's just not what my transness is. And if I understand my transness through patriarchy, or I understand my transness through what I'm given in front of me, then I will always feel less than.
Yeah.
But again, like these systems are not able to support me or people like us in our understanding of ourselves. Even if I think about, my experience being a mixed race Filipino person, I didn't have access to that part of my intersection. And so growing up, because I was raised by my mom. And so not understanding that Filipino part of myself, that is so tied to my transness
Mhm.
that it's very hard to find any resources to be able to help me through understanding my masculinity, or understanding my femininity, or understanding this eroticism. Because if I even think about healing as a masculine person, it is completely outside of patriarchy. I cannot align myself with these ideas of what it means to be a man, whether I'm a man or not. And so it's, these extremely high standards of, self-realization, but within colonialism, are just broken. And we will never find healing collectively if we continue through these models. So it'll be like this, you know, abolition. It'll be this, it'll hopefully eventually, like, queer resilience will carry us through. Queer and BIPOC resilience will carry us through to this reckoning of self, in this place beyond colonialism and capitalism and white supremacy.
Yeah, thank you for that insight, Benny. I think everything you said was incredibly poignant. The part that stuck out to me was the last bit that you were saying about your language is so perfect.
That's really nice of you to say. That's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. What you were saying about how we can't use these systems to heal when these systems weren't made for us. Your language was much better than mine.
Thanks at all. This is just, reading, and also just my own life experience. We're just sharing. There are plenty of times, Alicia, where you gag me, so don't worry.
Thanks. But yeah, what you were saying just felt so poignant, in the sense that when we talk about abolition, when we talk about these like Western white idealized versions of what healed looks like, what therapy looks like, we're almost expected to approach it piecemeal. Like I have to go to a BIPOC therapist to be able to heal the BIPOC part of me. I need to go to a queer therapist to heal the queer part of me that feels unseen and unheard and unheld. And that is, it blows my mind that we're expected to navigate these systems in that way when we're already so far behind the starting line because this society was not made for us. This society was not made to cater to us. Like queer people, statistically are some of the most financially marginalized groups in Western society. Like, how am I expected to pay for all of these different types of therapy? How am I expected to like access these groups? Like, I'm even thinking as a neurodivergent person, how do you expect me to show up to these things and like sit through a seminar or like a strong arm my way through healing when that's just not how my brain works?
Totally. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the flip side of that too is that, I mean, we are all affected by this, whether your intersections are, marginalized people like us or even, white cis people, because like this healing keeps people complicit, it keeps people oppressors. It keeps us from being able to address the fact that like we live in Canada, like we are the empire, and that doesn't necessarily, equate to the like reality, like that doesn't equate to the reality of, some models that were given. It's made to, um, these models tell a different story than that. Like what feeling would it actually bring if you were able to reconcile, like what healing would it bring to cishet white people who assimilate so well to reckon with this oppressor privilege that they have, and be able to actually provide insight to their life in a way that doesn't associate themselves from that,
Yeah.
like who then are we, then there's so much possibility for their own healing because they're not disconnected from that reality.
I think that's a really good point. So much of the harm is carried out through the neglect of their positioning. And when I say they, I'm thinking of like cis het, firmly middle class or upper class white people who have access to all of these things. So much of their harm is just out of neglect.
Yeah.
Which really just speaks to how like someone not taking action, that within itself, translating into harm that is so active and so real and so impactful, I think that signals something is wrong. And I don't know why. I don't know why we're not reckoning with that. The simple existence of their position in society should not be something that like threatens my life.
Totally. I think then I think that what I see when I think about this concept is that like the next step is then abolition. And people are terrified of change. People are like, and loss of power. It's like how if you are in this colonial mindset, we are in the reality of I need to I need to take unethically in order to satisfy myself.
Mm-hmm.
The only model that you use is then I need to be cunning and deceitful, and that is normal. When it is like it's actually like not that normal to, or rather it's a very human thing to be, but being in different relationship with your action, does that make sense? Like if you whatever narrative you're saying to yourself and you are
Mm-hmm.
harming someone else, you're not healed, but you think that you are healed because
Yes.
you whatever you've been told justifies that action, right? And so I that's a huge concept, but I really I'm very pro um I guess I'm very pro abolition, I guess. I didn't really, I don't like, I think that's the first time I am even saying it to myself, but it, it's simply just because like I as a trans, like BIPOC person have had to work so hard simply on being able to name the different things that do not work for me and why they don't work.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm really, really fortunate to have found community that is able to reflect the best parts of myself back at me so that I can, um, use my brain for and recover and use my brain for just that.
Yeah. I think so much of it is like the mental load of having to navigate this world as a trans person who is also BIPOC, entering spaces that aren't necessarily, like Bon said, even something as simple as like putting it on the poster, making it known like this is a welcoming space and a space tailored to queer and trans folks or BIPOC folks, whatever the group may be, that removes the mental load or lightens the mental load of having to do that like mental calculation of like, if I go here or if I do this or if I have this community, this person in my community, how is that going to result in either lightening or burdening my load and safety?
Yeah.
Even when, like you're saying that, I would decide, I was checking out other Sundances to be part of that, weren't the women's one I was part of in the States. I would actually check in with myself before I left. Do I have the bandwidth to approach a new ceremony that's all straight? Imagine I would decide if I had that, and because I've had past experience where it's like one time year I didn't go because I didn't have the emotional strength to deal with it. I decided that summer not to go to that one to see what their ceremony was like. That was an perfect example where even with the postering to say we're welcome or you're working on, space is safe for us, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to go be part of it without navigating that fear where, I mean, even to the toilet situation, that's another one, right?
Yeah, it rips
You know,
up for sure.
it's
Absolutely.
interesting watching, I was at a gathering last week somewhere and it was at the UBC, SFU, was it? Downtown Robson Square. There's a campus there. I was part of doing an opening in the washroom. It's great in there because they have a universal washroom that there's two doors and there's the main area where everybody washes their hands together. And then the separate stalls with the door. Well, I had to chuckle because people were going there. These females were going there. They didn't know what to do. Right. And I laughed. I went, you guys figure it out. I'm not helping you. Right. Like they were uncomfortable with an open stall. Like, and they've had these in bars before, the newer bars, like they'll have the main bathroom and everybody's going in. We all wash the same area and there's private doors. They're good. You just go and do your thing and go out and wash your hands together. Like they were so awkward. They didn't know what to do. And I was like, it's about time. I mean, whatever it was, I couldn't care less. They'd figure it out. It was least of my worry. But that's even, it's like they're trying to navigate a common bathroom. Like, really? You guys got to sweat over this? Like,
It's interesting to hear that the tables have finally turned for them to be entering a bathroom and being uncomfortable.
yeah, it was like they didn't know how to do. Like, oh, who's this bathroom for? Like, even though it said everyone, and their two doors were coming in, and the same door going out, two of them at both ends, and it was nice in there. They did a good job. So I liked it, and they were like,
It's a toilet. We're here to go to the bathroom. That's it.
oh my gosh.
Oh man. I feel like this is a good place for us to be wrapping up. I feel like this is a high point for us to be wrapping up. I feel invigorated and motivated, and I have that little fire under my ass right now. So I feel like I'd like to wrap up on this high note. But before we close out, does anybody have any final comments? Okay, amazing. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we touched on so many different things. And the basis of it all was joy comes in many different forms and from many different places. And we just have to be open to receiving it. So thank you for sharing all of your beautiful insight with me. Really appreciate it.